Hello there. Hi, everybody. My name's Mary. I'm a teacher for Dada ABC, and today I'm going to give you guys some tips and just tell you about what it's been like for me teaching with Dada ABC. All right, I've been working with Dada since the beginning of the year, 2016. So it's been about a year, almost a year and a half now. And it's been a very, very fun experience, an amazing journey for me and the students. And my students have learned and grown so much in that time. It's been so amazing to see their development over time, as well as my own as a teacher. So I'd just like to share with you guys what that has been like. So, if you're a new teacher and you're just getting started teaching online, believe me, I know it can be nerve-wracking. There are so many things to think about. Not only the technical side of it, is everything okay with the computer? And then, wanting to make sure that you know the courseware and exactly what to do, what to say to the student. Will they understand me? Am I going to do a good job? There are so many things that are going on at the same time. And what I can tell you about that in my experience is, above all, the most important thing is building relationships before, even the courseware, before even making sure that you know exactly what they're going to be learning about and how you should scaffold it and how you should pace it during the 30 minutes. I really truly believe that the most important thing is relationship building. Um, a lot of my students only see me once a week, some of them twice a week, but they only come once a week for a 30-minute lesson, and they're living in an environment where there's a dearth of support for speaking English. And so they're going about their daily lives in Chinese, shopping, eating, being with friends, family, everything you could think of is surrounded in this acquisition poor environment. And then all of a sudden they log in onto a computer and see this foreign face. And it's live and it's talking and it's moving. And a lot of them are pretty shy. Some of them aren't. Some of them are very, very funny and talk a lot. But especially for the first time student, and if you're a new teacher, it can be difficult to kind of get over that hump. Um, so I strongly, strongly recommend to just be yourself, be relaxed, and just try to engage them and start building a relationship from the get go. So, a good question would be, what exactly do I mean by relationship building? It sounds good in and of itself, and there's no stepwise process for it. It can mean a lot of things, and it all depends on your student and you. Um, so, for some students that already have a bit of a foundation in English, relationship building can be pretty simple. Just asking those questions of getting to know you. What's your name? What do you like? Um, what what don't you like? Just engaging them in that moment and making it meaningful is really, really important and very useful for fostering this relationship that'll continue to develop. Even if that means taking a moment away from the courseware, just to let them know that you care about what they have to say, that you're not there to just make them repeat after you, but that you care about who they are and what they're thinking and what they want to say. I have found to be really useful. Now, in the case of very, very young students, some students, they're so young, they're true beginners, and they don't have anything to say yet except hello. The student that you say, "How are you?" and they say, "I'm 7." For those students, relationship building has been a little bit more tricky. It's a little bit more nuanced because it's implicit. It's not so much about the give and take of conversation because they're not capable of that yet, but it really boils down to just showing them that you are happy to be there with them. So for me, I show that with a lot of body gestures and having a lot of toys around, just entertaining them. Getting that student who looks like they're so scared to smile at least once, even if they're not speaking much, is a very, very good beginning. And I've found that using my stuffed animals, everybody knows Pinky. She is probably more famous than I am. I'm Pinky. I have like my own personality and I love hamburgers. They'll talk to her. And I always try to have just at least a handful of things sitting within reach of my computer. Here's a little rabbit and a little duck, you know, um, just, you know, kids live in a world of make believe and fantasy, and they have amazing imaginations. And catering to that and showing that you're willing to join in that world with them is a very, very good beginning, and it keeps them coming back. So, for some teachers, you may already know, or you might just be getting started, and may or may know about the virtual web camera software that I like to use. It's called ManyCam. I suppose meaning that there are many cameras. So I just want to briefly touch upon that about how I incorporate that into my lessons. And there's also an additional, more technical video that's out there that you can watch about the nitty and gritty of using ManyCam. But in general, the biggest thing I use ManyCam for when I'm teaching is to kind of use it as a sort of whiteboard. So you're going to see right now that I can transition to a different screen and suddenly start typing some text. And I've found this to be extremely useful in class. Sometimes I might say something and the student has no idea what I've said, and I'll type it out here. And if you know any Chinese, or if you can use Google Translate, which by the way, those translations are pretty tricky. They're going to be okay for simple sentences, but for more complex ones, I'd stay away from it. Um, but if you know, like, okay, I'm pretty sure that's the right translation, you can put it there. So I found ManyCam to be really useful for being able to use as a whiteboard. The second thing that's also really useful about it is being able to show pictures and videos. Those are invaluable. So I've got a picture here of Pikachu's face, and I can suddenly show that. So let's say I said to my student, "Oh, it's that animal." Maybe we're learning a new animal, and they have no idea what I'm talking about. I can suddenly just pull in a picture and go, "Well, I mean this." And as they say, a picture speaks 1,000 words, so that's really helpful. Also, you can show videos. That's just as easy. So here's a video here of someone walking through the Badlands in the saltwater basin. And you can talk over it at the same time and then go back to yourself. So that's really helpful to give students that extra comprehensible input, as I like to call it, so that they know just what you mean. And that can save a lot of time for, achieving understanding, considering that a lot of our students only get that 30 minutes a week with us. Another strategy that I've found to be very valuable is listening. There's a lot of value in just listening to the student, even when it may be a student that's not speaking very much or they're very, very shy. Um, as teachers and as human beings, I think a lot of times we have a tendency to want to fill the space. We don't like there to be too much quiet time. But I've found that, when I asked a student a question, and provided that I'm sure they understand the content of my question, um, I'll count on my fingers to five at least before I start speaking again, just to give them that response time. They're learning a second language, and acquisition of a language takes years, and they need that extra processing. So just think about it. If someone came up to you and asked you, 你今天干嘛? You might be like, what? You need a second to think about and prepare what you're going to say. And a lot of times we might get impatient or think, oh, well, they don't know what to say or they don't understand. And then we keep talking. Um, but that is really robbing them of that opportunity for the most part. Now, sometimes you might find that they really don't know what to say or they have nothing to say, and then you can help them. But sometimes when I ask them something, I, I, I will look down at my hand and count to five and just let it be silent because they're usually thinking about what to say, and listening on our part is really important to let them know that we care what it is that they have to say. Praising every effort. This is equally important. As you guys may know, in the teacher's platform, they have that function of awarding stars, the 5 stars as being the maximum. And we always want to award them those 5 stars throughout the lesson, no matter what. So, um, using those for praise is pretty much a given. And you just need to pace yourself throughout the 30 minutes. I try to give a star at least every 5 minutes or so. And unless they did something really awesome, I might award them more quickly. Um, but in addition to letting them see that those stars are there to show them that you're praising their effort, also praising everything that they do, every attempt that they make at something is also equally important. Just by saying, good job, or showing them with your smile and your eyes that you're really impressed with their effort, even if they're wrong. This is, I think, highly important because there's nothing that can discourage a student more quickly than being told, nope, that's wrong, nope, that's wrong, nope, that's wrong. And that's not what learning a language is about, in my opinion. It's not about right and wrong, it's about communicating and getting your message across and having that invaluable interaction between two people, that back and forth. And so praising their effort is really, really important. So, for example, if there's a sentence on the screen um, where the goal of the courseware is trying to elicit them to say, um, what color are they? Because there's a picture of 2 balls, and so it's the plural, and you're sitting there hoping that they'll get it right and that they don't say what color is it, but they say what color is it, and they say that it's green and blue. Well, they didn't use the right structure, but praise every effort. Yes, that's right. They are green and blue. And so what I did just there was I embedded the correct structure into my feedback. Now, again, I will kind of circle back around and keep going to that to make sure that they've got it. But let's say, for example, that there's a picture of 2 balls, and I'm really hoping that they pose the question, what color are they? Now, maybe the student said, what color is it? And instead of me saying, no, wrong, what color are they? That's one way to shoot them down really, really quickly. And the next thing you know, they're not saying anything because they're embarrassed. And a lot of time, parents might be sitting right nearby, and parents can be really, really assertive about wanting their child to be corrected in the moment and firmly. Well, unfortunately, that's not my style because I've found that that doesn't work. All it does is create a student that is afraid to say anything then because they're so scared they're going to be wrong. And I don't want to do that. So I try to praise every effort and then embed into my feedback to them what the possible sentence really is. And then I give what I call and what researchers call an input flood. So let's say they messed up that sentence. Instead of me saying, no, it's what color are they? Or I want them to say, they are green and blue. Instead, I'll just take them on a little tour of some photos then, and I'll say this structure, they are, and then whatever the color is, like at least 5 times, and just give them an input flood. And they're gonna take that up and store it into their short-term memory and then get them to produce it afterward, and I've found that to be really effective. So it's a kind of implicit approach where I'm not barraging them with correction, but I'm just showing them here's what is possible in English. Oh, look at this cat. Look at its fur. Look at its eyes. Yeah, those eyes, they are brown. Oh, and look at these animals. They are white and black and white and whatever else. So then I'll just kind of go in and do this input flood where I just give them a lot of examples of what the correct structure is. And I've found that more often than not, then when we move on, they start to self correct. And if they don't self correct, I gently correct them. Then I kind of go to the next step if they still didn't pick it up. And then I'll just gently add, oh, they are when they're performing their utterance. I'd also like to tell you guys about some of the different teaching strategies and methodologies that are very popular out there. Some of them work better than others, and again, I don't want to say that one strategy is better than another. It always depends on your students' learning style and what they respond to. So you just got to, play around with it and see what works. Um, One of the teaching strategies that you'll hear about most often is probably TPR. So let me get that off there. And this is abbreviated as just the letters TPR. And what it stands for is Total Physical Response. Now, this is a teaching strategy that has been around since the 1960s or 70s, I believe. And what is at its core, what the crux of total physical response is that it's a kind of a method where you are presenting an item, usually a lexical item, like a vocabulary word, to the student. And when you say that word, you want them to respond in a physical manner. So let's say we're looking at the courseware here. So I'll just go ahead and try to share my screen with you of one of the more common Dada coursewares that I've seen in classes. Okay, here we go. I hope that works. So this one, and I'll try to zoom in. Okay, this is from Longman Express Unit 1B, Colorful Toys. And so this little boy Tim is looking in this toy box and he has to guess which toy is inside. So we're eliciting this key vocabulary of a car, a teddy bear, a ball. So let's say the vocabulary word is car. So with physical response, the teacher might show them like this, like driving. And the teacher will say, car. And the method, the intended purpose of the method is that the student, you will elicit in the student a total physical response, which means that they don't speak. They should be quiet and they just respond with the action. So you say what you would say, car, and they would go like this. Now, there's a lot of misconception. A lot of people think that TPR means that they also repeat the word with you and do the action. And that's not what TPR really is. There's another method that is also very popular that's called audiolingual. The audiolingual method is more kind of like what a lot of teachers do when they're hoping and wanting the student to repeat after them. So maybe if you're wanting to use both methods with saying car and you want them to say car and do like this, then that would be kind of a combination of audiolingual and TPR methods at the same time. Um, those methods are very useful for giving the students something to remember that's physical, that connects their memory to vocabulary. The only problem with it is that it's not very useful for teaching grammar or for really getting full sentences out of them. So, when it comes to more extended discourse and more speaking, and you're hoping that they get those sentence structures and the right word order, and those times I find that just giving them a lot of comprehensible input is really useful. And this is a comprehensible input, and this is a theory derived by a researcher, Stephen Krashen, also in the 1970s. And basically, the core of this means that we acquire language through understanding messages. And so, how can we get our students to understand an entire sentence at one time? And a lot of that, there's a lot of controversy about this in research. A lot of second language acquisition researchers don't agree on exactly how to arrive at it. Um, but as long as for me, what I found to be the best is making the input comprehensible, which means that it's understandable and also that it's meaningful. A lot of times in the course where we might find that the students are going to visit a place in Hong Kong, and because these books are published by Pearson, Hong Kong, and a lot of our students are in mainland China, so they can't always connect the text to the self about what is going on. Why are these kids talking about um, this place in Hong Kong I've never heard of? So if you like, sometimes I just change it up a little bit and find out something that's more connected to their daily life and just put a substitution in there. So, for example, instead of talking about what do you see in the Hong Kong Zoo or the Hong Kong Country Park, ask them, well, what do you see at your zoo? And then as soon as they're now talking about something that has to do with them, and it's not this make believe land of what's in the book, and they start making it meaningful, then they start really trying to produce these sentences, and they will do their best to produce them correctly, and then that's when you can step in and help them along the way with corrective feedback and whatever it is that they need help with. The last thing I want to talk about is just something that's, kind of hard to put your finger on, but doing your best to use your personality and to have fun during the lesson is really important. Um, Children, by and large, love to feel silly. I love to feel silly too. So that can be a surefire way to jumpstart a lesson that otherwise they might feel as boring. Sometimes in the course where we have these kill and drill exercises where they're repeating the same sentence structure over and over again, and that's no fun. And it doesn't have anything to do with their lives personally. So, spicing it up a little bit, like I talked about before, making it meaningful to their lives, asking about if the unit is talking about toys and you see this boy and girl and they're showing each other their toys. Okay, that's great. Well, then I'll show them, okay, well, here's my toy. What toy do you have? Let's talk about our toys. And using ManyCam to let them laugh. So maybe you have a toy mouse. Okay, well, I have a toy mouse too. Ah! And then, then we're really rolling. As soon as you got something a little more interesting going on there, oh, what's in the picture here? I'm not really sure. Let me rub my eyes. Oh, now I see. All these kind of things make the students laugh a lot, and it makes the lesson more fun for them and for you. But I would like to give a word of caution. Be careful with who you're teaching. Sometimes I have found that very, very young students, especially if it's our first time to meet, sometimes using some of these face masks actually scares them to death. And there has been a time or two when I ended up with a student crying because she didn't understand why I had a monkey face all of a sudden. So be very selective and use caution and good judgment before you start in with any of these special effects. But otherwise, they're really fun and useful to make the class more fun and interesting for the student. In closing a lesson, I always try to make sure I leave like 1 minute at the end to review what we learned that day, just to remind them here's everything that you accomplished. Letting the students feel a sense of accomplishment is really important so that they don't, feel that it was all for nothing. Maybe you had a student that made a lot of mistakes, but again, I say we celebrate those mistakes because those are a window into their mind of how they're thinking and how they're constructing things in learning a language. So, in closing the lesson, I like to review everything that we talked about or the most salient points and always thank them for their time and tell them that you were happy to see them and that you can't wait to see them again next time. And saying bye bye. And, maybe Pinky says bye bye too. And this has been an amazing journey for me doing this in the past year and a half. And I'm definitely really happy and proud and honored to share it with you guys. So thank you for being here and listening to our video and happy teaching. Best of luck to you.